I'm Kelsey Litchfield, and this is the Field Advisor Podcast, where I talk with local experts to unpack the latest agronomy information and research, giving you the knowledge to make informed decisions out in the field. Welcome back to the Field Advisor Podcast. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, back with our Illinois soy envoys who are spread out across the state, and I'll introduce them here in a second. Also joined by Stephanie Porter, outreach agronomist with Illinois Soybean Association in Taylorville, Illinois. So real quick, we got Mike Wilson, Southeastern Illinois, Byron Hendrix, West Central Illinois, even though you're in Freeport, you said today. So I'm sure you've been... Oh, Free Bird. Excuse me, Free Bird. And then we got Seth Wiley, Northern Illinois. So real quick, Mike, I know I teased you earlier, but I said the rain just won't stop. And it's almost, you got to laugh a little bit, right? To keep going, to make sure.
Yeah, laughing helps. Yeah, we just opened a new dispensary here in Wabash County in Mount Carmel this summer. I haven't been in yet, but boy, it gets tempting. It rained anywhere from 1/10 to 2.5 inches, 3 inches, and within 40 miles of my house last night. And I took my 15-year-old grandson. He wanted to go fishing, so he wanted to try out a new reel he got. So we went fishing. We get out on the lake, and it starts to sprinkle a little bit. And I said, "You ready to go back, bud?" And he goes, "No, not yet, not yet." And about the time the second lightning bolt hit in sight, it was time to get out of that aluminum boat and get off the lake.
Good call.
So we got out there. But it's drizzling around in places today, and it's weird. We were talking about before we went on the air. It's coming up out of the southeast. We're circling backwards again, just like we did in February, March, and April down here. So yeah, it just keeps raining. But the good thing is the crop we've got going, the rain is really helping. We've got some really fantastic looking soybeans in places. If it wasn't the first week of August, I'd be a whole lot more excited about them. But I just don't know what's going to happen over the next 60 days. That's what's going to be tricky.
And rain still in the forecast. I know one thing you talked about in your crop report, you have been having hot and humid, which are ideal conditions for disease development. So has the fungicides been able to go on in your neck of the woods?
We have been, we've been very fortunate that the amount of time, as spread out as the crop is, we've had time to get the fungicides on. We've done a lot. We've done more with drones this year than probably the last 3 years combined. A lot of aerial application with fixed wing, and even some ground application that some of the farmers that have their own sprayers have done. So we're getting a lot of fungicide on. I'm not seeing, everything I see looks really good. Now I'm starting to see flocks of swallows. That is not normally a good sign around late planted corn, because that means we got a lot of critters flying around. And been finding a lot of dead moths in the swimming pool. So, my little trap there. So it's, there's a lot of things to work out yet, but I'm in a whole lot better mood and a lot more optimistic than I was 60 days ago.
That's good. You said the Japanese beetles probably drowned too, right?
Yep, that's what I'm hoping. They come out, and they were little bitty things. They were about 1/4 of an inch long, and then they were just gone. We didn't see them anymore. They didn't go. Didn't see any 3/4 inch ones. It was weird.
They had drowned.
I hope. I don't care where they went, as long as they're gone.
Gone. Yeah.
Of course, we've had enough rain you could almost drown a carp, but
Heck of a lot of rain. Thanks, Mike. Let's quickly go over Byron, who I said lives in Henry County, West Central Illinois. You're down by near the St. Louis area. Tell us about that trip down south. How did things change? Do they look the same? I know you're going 80 miles per hour down the interstate or however you got there. So it's a windshield survey, but just what were some of your observations?
Yeah, I think, I got little talking with my stepdad down here and his colleague in Washington County. So I decided to go out in St. Clair County today and actually look at, really focus on double crop soybeans. I'm concerned on the double crops because I would say around 80 to 85% stands is the average. There are some worse than that, and there's some that look really good. But because we had so much rainfall, the wheat got off really quick. We didn't have ideal conditions to really plant these soybeans in. And so there's a lot of water hemp escapes. I mean, a lot. Big water hemp too. Farmers did what they could to kill what they could. Some looks good, but there's a lot of escapes. There's a lot of bare ground. I sent a picture in the crop report just recently from around the Millstadt area there. And, that's my main concern with the double crop soybeans, although they're growing well. Just as the regular soybean crop looks pretty darn good. I mean, I'm pretty amazed. The only thing I really see is, some insect feeding here and there with a bunch of different, bugs, you name it, Japanese beetle, or I actually took a picture up north, move up there in a second, of the nymph stage of stink bug. So they're on their way for soybean feeding. But yeah, overall, I mean, I agree with Mike. 60 days ago, or even July 4th, I was like, wow, this crop down here is in trouble. It's not going to be very good, but we got all this rain, and it's looking pretty darn good right now. Corn and soybeans both. I'm just most concerned about the double crop soybeans. That's my main concern in Southern Illinois. And I'm not sure, Stephanie, up toward I-70 as it goes northeast, toward Terre Haute, if it gets any better with double crop that way, or Mike, if you've seen that. But I know certainly I-64 and south is probably looking a lot like what I saw.
About every double crop field I've seen looks like you're describing. It's just, it's hit or miss on the stand, and more, 85% is going to be good.
Yep. Definitely.
I assume we'll be talking more about disease, so we'll get to that here in a little bit. But just real quick, Byron, some of the diseases you're seeing out in fields right now.
Yeah, I've got concern about tar spot. That's my main concern right now, going from the bottom up, of course. Really focusing on the ear leaf. The ear leaf is okay for right now. A lot of the fields, I don't know if they've been sprayed or not. A lot of these are, just I stop by, I get out, I walk in 24, 36 rows, and I check the ear leaf for sure. But tar spot's certainly working its way up the plant. And it's that's a major concern as we get to, rolling toward maturity here. The biggest thing I think we have on our side right now is that this crop is going quick. It's maturing quick. I think we do have that as a bonus for those that sprayed and got 3 weeks of good control. I think that's going to be very, very good for them because the crop is coming along very quickly. For those that didn't spray, that's my main concern. And there's some people thinking about a second time potentially if that does get to the ear leaf and we see some major things go on in the next 7 to 10 days. That could be a major factor in those decisions. But a lot of people don't want to go spend $30+ an acre again for that application, even though 2 applications, the ROI still is there, especially with a disease like tar spot. But so those are the decisions being made right now on the farm. I think a lot of scouting is going to be done this next 7 days for sure, into next week to make those decisions. But yeah, I mean, northern corn leaf blight is out there as well. But tar spot's really got my eye this year. I hope we don't have it as bad as we did when it first came to Illinois.
Mm-hmm. So let's move north of I-80. Seth, what's your observations out in the field? Corn, soybean, the whole gamut.
Yeah, so I mean, echoing most of what these guys said. I guess I'll start with double crop beans. Kind of same thing you guys are seeing. This isn't really big wheat country up here. Mainly it's just livestock guys that got it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely water hemp escapes in them, and they're probably 85% stand. They didn't go into real good conditions, and they just look pretty weak. So I would say that's pretty standard up here as well. Corn and soybeans have really come a long way. I mean, they look really, really good. The corn crop, yeah, I mean, just really, I've done some yield counts and some projected yield stuff. And I mean, it looks like it's a really good crop out there for sure. Tar spot is the biggest issue we've got. I mean, just to echo off what Byron said. I mean, I've been kind of monitoring it for the past month, and it's just kind of slowly crept up the plant. It's been pretty slow though. So, we kind of adjusted we've got some fungicide trials out where we did some in R1, and then we kind of waited and pushed some back to back to brown silk, or maybe even a little bit later than brown silk, and we upped our rates. Was just kind of the approach we took. We ran max rate on a premium fungicide, and we're not going to do a second pass today. I mean, I guess we'll monitor it, but just like you said, with economics and ROI and whatnot, it's probably not what we're going to do. We just changed the rate structure and played with the timing a little bit and got a little specific there on that. So yeah, but I actually saw I was in a field this morning and saw more rust than I'd seen in the last couple of weeks too, common rust. So northern corn leaf blights there, that hasn't seemed to really get much worse. Gray leaf spots gotten a little worse too over the past couple of weeks, but yeah, all the fungicide I think kind of got wrapped up around here. Really, most of it was probably done 10 days ago for the most part, but there was some finishing up getting done here kind of this weekend. So I think by now everything's kind of done. Switching to beans. Yeah, most of our beans were in pretty early, so they're full canopy and look very, very well. I really haven't seen much disease in beans, but just in the last 4 or 5 days, you've started to see those pockets come up in bean fields where it's, SDS or white mold. I was in a bean field this morning and I walked out into one of those pockets and I did find a little white mold. So, but that's just kind of started here in the last 4 or 5 days. So, but overall, I mean, the crop looks really well. I mean, I think the infestation level of these diseases is really gonna tell the story on how they finish here the next 30 days. But overall, I mean, the yield potential today is very high, I would say, overall. So
Stephanie, you want to real quick tell us about what you reported in your crop report about your dad and your brother disagreeing on applying fungicide to corn this year and what you've been finding?
Yeah, I mean, this year was a scout year for us, and I think you definitely have to take into account the hybrid. The hybrid that we were in, I think, is a little bit more prone to gray leaf spot, but that was the major disease that we were seeing. And the difference, we went a little, to your point, Seth, we went at R1, and it was the right call, especially with the weather the way it was. And last year we were a little bit more towards brown silk, but every year's different. Every hybrid's different. But the difference between the check of no fungicide, and it's a premium fungicide, versus the one that was sprayed is really a big difference. So almost to the point, to your point, Byron, ear leaf and up, totally clean, we're fine. And so then others are like, you may need to spray again. I said, no, we're fine. We're at brown silk now, and I think we're going to be good from here on out. It got cooler. That helped with some of the diseases for a little bit. I saw northern started to pop up a little bit more, which makes sense as well. And then we're seeing a lot of, I have in the last couple years, of Goss's wilt, and that is also, certain hybrids could be more susceptible to that. And I'm hearing others talk about that too. So if you're not sure what it is and you're like, my fungicide didn't work, it could be because it's a bacterial disease too. So, and I guess in one of our trials in Bloomington, we did see, Darby did see some southern rust pop up. So keeping an eye on that. But I think that's popping up a little bit everywhere. I'm getting questions on, is it southern rust or is it common rust too, especially as you move north, because they're just not usually as familiar with that disease. Same with downy mildew. And it's normal because you just don't see it a lot of times. And it's just been so much warmer than usual, I think, in the northern part of the state, that it's just stuff that's more common down Mike's way is, showing up.
yeah, I don't think I've ever, I mean, if I've seen southern rust, I guess I called it common rust. 'Cause I guess I don't, rust dust is common rust up here.
We'll have
Yes.
it. I guarantee. We've got it. We're dealing with it now.
Yeah. So common would be a little bit redder. That's how I tell the difference. It's not as aggressive as southern. Common likes a little bit cooler weather. Southern it takes a while for it to blow up from the south. Well, both of them from the south. and it usually doesn't, hit north, or I think it might be a little bit worse this year just because of the later planted stuff as well. We're a little bit more worried about it. They talk about common lots of times has pustules on both sides of the leaf. I don't like to go by that all the time. I don't think it's 100%, but that's another way to tell the difference between them. But I think that southern rust, when it hits, Mike, it hits. It's not like a few pustules, and it also is a little bit more, I would say, yellowish orange too. So.
Yeah, and the thing with common rust will wipe off somewhat, but you walk through a field with southern rust in it, and you look like Big Bird when you come out. I mean, it's all over you. It's
especially if you have a hybrid that's very susceptible.
Yeah. Yep.
Mike, any other diseases you're seeing in your region, corn or soybean?
We're seeing corn. We're seeing some physoderma a little bit, but not, and nothing we don't see all the time. Southern a little bit, gray leaf spot. But honestly, we're spraying so much fungicide. The guys that got corn planted that looks good, we're just spraying it. If we're cutting back on anything, we're still using premium products. If we're cutting back on anything, we're cutting back on maybe a nutritional add-in or a stress mitigator add-in with the fungicide, maybe just running a fungicide and boron. I know it sounds a little late, but we've got positive yield response down here with a little bit of boron at that point. I really think it's more about nitrogen uptake than it is anything else, but that's just my opinion. Soybeans, we're really not seeing much. I'm not seeing any SDS yet. I expect to see brown stem rot or SDS start to raise its head any time. Really, other diseases down here just don't show up unless it's kind of a crazy thing. Of course, we don't deal with white mold, thank God. We don't deal with that. But yeah, I mean, we just don't. We got southern rust and corn. It's a trade-off. Yeah. But but we honestly, the beans we've got look really good. The beans around my house, we got we got a 10th to 1500s last night at my house. And I went out and got in the pickup this morning. When the lights came on, it was like, holy cow, those beans grew overnight. So the bean crop that's going looks great, except for the double crops. Like Byron said, we don't have a stand. We just don't have a good stand anywhere.
Do you know why that is, you think?
Poor seed to soil contact. We just planted too darn muddy. We didn't get the seed. Okay, this is really hard to say. Seed slit shut. So slow down, say it right. That's part of it. I'm not going to say 2,4-D was sprayed too close to planting, but that can be a contributing factor, especially if the seed isn't covered with soil. Anytime 2,4-D comes in contact with the seed, I don't care if it's resistant to 2,4-D or not, that's going to damage the seed coat. It just is. So really, we're not. I know I've been gloom and doom all spring so far, but here at the end of the summer, I'm pretty pleased with the way things look. I really am.
Sure.
But like I put in the crop report the other day, 0 is still 0, and the prevent plant acres and the flooded acres and every little tributary. The Ohio River usually gives us fits in southern Illinois, and Wabash gives us fits all through Wabash Valley. But this year, they haven't given us as much trouble as the Umbral, the Bumpaw, the Little Wabash, the Muddy, the small tributaries that have flooded every time we got a 5-inch rain is what's killed us. And that's where we've got our prevent plant and where we've got 0. We're going to have 0 yield because there's no crop on it. Other than water hemp. Water hemp is flourishing. But, that's what, someone said something on Twitter today about anyone that thinks we got a record crop hadn't been south of 70. And one guy said, well, I live south of 70 and most of my farm south of 70. Well, he's a mile south of 70. I mean, there's another 100 miles of Illinois south of 70. And it's pretty tough, and especially along those tributaries.
Mm-hmm. With what you all are seeing, are you agreeing, and this goes for any one of you, with what the markets are thinking? It seems like a lot of talk is the markets are going to see record crops. I know that's a loaded question, but I'm just curious, like what you're alluding to, Mike, south of I-70, there's nothing. There's places that are prevent plants. So I don't know if the market has taken that into consideration. I'm not a market person, but from your agronomy point of view, do you think it's there? I mean, August 5th right now. Well,
LaSalle, as far as LaSalle Street is concerned, what exists south of 70 is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say about that. So
I think it's too early to tell on beans, to Mike's point. When I get asked this question over and over, and actually I was going to do a blog on it, but then I thought I better simmer down. But corn wise, there's some really good corn out there. I think the question is that the what do they call it? The pollination issues, the tassel. Like, was that blown out of proportion? How bad was that? I keep getting asked that question. Have I seen it? You know, I don't know. And it's interesting because, you know, we had a meteorologist say, boy, you know, everything looks so green. You know, they're just like big yields. And I was like, but then you have to take the husk off the corn ear and check it out. And we had drought in some areas where we saw some, you know, ear tips that were not filled out, and that doesn't necessarily translate into big yield loss necessarily. But I think we also had times where maybe we had lower temperatures, really high nightly temperatures, and I wonder how that affected some of the earlier planted corn. Lots of questions, a lot of different planting dates. So it should be interesting here on out. A lot of disease.
Well, I guess it gives us something to talk about for sure.
Yeah, I think the farmer and all of us are hoping they're wrong. I guess I'll say that. But I mean, looking out there, I mean the crop does look well, but very good. But you just never know. I mean, you gotta take it as it comes, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and just grow a crop. I think back to what Mike and I talked about a couple podcasts ago. You got to get in the mindset to either grow a crop or save money, and we're gonna grow a crop, and we're gonna see what Mother Nature deals us, and the marketing and what they're gonna do and what's gonna happen is gonna be what it's gonna be. So,
and the ears I've pulled down, just for example, you know, on a yield aspect of things, you know, pollination looks good all the way up the ear, but you look at the bottom of the ear and you may have had 16 or 18, you know, and all of a sudden it corrected itself. I say corrected itself, and then all of a sudden now you've got 16 or 14 the rest of the way up. And that could have been a couple inches of it down at the very bottom of the butt of the ear. You can see the rapid growth syndrome we had. You can see a lot of those things that may reduce this yield a little bit from the top end. But I think overall the trade is trading a large crop, and they're expecting a large crop.
Have any of you heard any problems of tip back in corn? I saw real quickly someone was talking about it today, but I haven't investigated it too much.
I haven't seen much, and I haven't seen much of that. What's a tight wrap or whatever social media is calling it?
Tassel wrap. Tight tassel
wrap. There we go.
Yeah,
that's the right.
But even tip back, I haven't seen a whole lot of tip back either. I mean, the pollination seemed to have gone pretty well in the fields I've walked anyway. You know, which tells me that we pollinated at the correct time and missed some of that weather that would cause that tip back, substantial tip back anyway. But overall, I think the bottom of the ears is where I'm most concerned. You know, where did we go from, 16 or 18 around and went down, and then got back to 14 around all the way up. But pollination, I think, to the tip looks pretty decent in the field.
Yeah, I saw some fields tassel pretty unevenly, and I think that the tassel wrap, I think, was a real thing. I mean, across some of the fields, but I think our weather at that time really saved us. I mean, we were we were pretty cool. I mean, that plant wasn't stressed. I mean, that had a good pollination window. So even if it came out late, I think it still pollinated fine. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I just don't think that we're gonna see the negative effects from it. So, my opinion. But
Stephanie, did you see the article that I don't remember who the professor was or researcher wrote about tying boron deficiency in the corn plant to the tassel wrap?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it was on X, so who knows?
I saw that too, Mike, somewhere.
Okay, good. I didn't dream it, but
no, you didn't dream it.
I thought it was interesting because he quoted Jeff Hagan, who's the soil lab we use down here at Owensboro, Kentucky, and they were looking at they do a lot of tissue testing, a lot of tissue samples. They do all our tissue samples, and they were seeing across. I don't know. I guess we're considered mid-south here. That boron deficiency in the corn plants, corn samples that were run this year were up like X number of percent. And the whoever wrote the article was talking about how that could be tied to this tassel wrap. I have no idea because reproductive health on corn and soybeans is tied to boron. I understand that, but I just thought it was an interesting take. But it's like Grandpa used to say, 100 years from now, nobody will even talk about tassel wrap. So I've never seen it before.
And we'll probably
like
never
this.
see it again.
And
Maybe
never see
not.
it again. Because the farmer brought one of those articles in and was asking me about it. And I said, the only time I've ever seen anything like that in a year like this was crazy top. And I haven't seen any crazy top yet. But, that's a soil-borne fungus or bacteria, whichever. I don't know which it is, Stephanie.
Fungus.
But, okay. But, we've seen it completely wreck a field in the past. But today's hybrids are pretty resistant to it. So I think it's environmental. I think it's the rapid growth syndrome or something like that. Just a freak thing. And then the chemical guy says, well, that's what it is. It's environmental. And the seed guy says, well, it's chemical damage. So, we just go in circles.
is anyone else seeing SDS or white mold?
I got a call yesterday, so just north of you, a former coworker friend.
Okay.
Definitely this last week, just like you said, he's been getting the calls and it's white mold all of a sudden, SDS and some brown stem rot. And so just showing up, and after that rain, but more so on earlier planted beans. And he also mentioned that some felt that they needed to cut some inputs, and they cut the SDS treatment. And that's not going to totally save you. That's not the cure all, but that can help you, especially in early planted beans. So
yeah, I got kind of I remember I guess in the office when I was talking about we had some bean varieties that pretty weak on white mold, and I mean we're in white mold central up here. So back when we were before 4th of July and it hadn't rained in a month, and I was telling some of my colleagues here that I think we need to do some white mold treatment. They all looked at me like I got 3 heads, and maybe it looked like we ended up doing some of it. We didn't do all of it, so that'll be kind of curious to see. There's some we actually just did that first treatment on, and we didn't do the second one on. There's some we did 2 treatments on. There's some we just did the regular R3 on. So I guess we'll kind of see which one does better. I kind of got my bets on. I think which one will be better, but we'll see here. So, but it seems like it's done this for 3 years. I mean, we get hot and dry, and markets go bad, and we just don't want to do it, and it's not going to happen. And then we get to the 1st of August, and boom, it shows up. So, but yeah, it's just shown up here. I would even say in the last 4 days.
Yeah.
So over the weekend. So, yep.
The only other thing that I've gotten a call or a text message would be, and I saw it in our field, but nothing to be alarmed about. I am starting to see corn aphids. And they were a little worried about it in southern Illinois, and it obviously we had mid-May planted corn that's at brown silk now, or milk, but this corn looked it's just pollinating, maybe perhaps. So much later planted corn, It usually likes dry, cooler weather. I think it's supposed to warm up. So I think it should be okay, but just something to keep an eye on in certain areas, especially if you have later planted corn. But once you hit dent, I wouldn't worry much about it, but I would definitely be worried about it. And it did affect our farm last year on certain hybrids at pollination.
We sprayed some aphids last week. The location manager called me and said, "Hey, what have we got for aphids?" And I told him. He said, "Well," he said, "that's too expensive." I'm like, okay, I went straight to the generic. I don't know what we're going to do. So, but we are spraying a few, and that's in that Western Crawford, Northern, Eastern Jasper areas where we were spraying.
Okay, so what are we missing? What's should be on our radar that we haven't covered yet, or any other questions you are getting from farmers in your area?
When's the market going to turn around?
That's huge. Markets just seems to be the biggest topic right now. Myself, I would be looking at soybeans because we're getting to that, pods are starting to form. And, I think we could have potential, unless they got flooded out, Mike, by a lot of rainfall. But there are various amounts of insects out there in soybean fields right now, whether they're at the nymph stage or eggs, or just coming out. So I think in the next, 7 to 10 days, we probably ought to be looking at for those, because early feeding on those pods can be detrimental, of course.
Oh yeah.
So that would be on my radar. And then of course we talked about the diseases in corn to keep an eye out of that, but soybeans for sure, I think need to be scouted pretty good here the next 7 to 10 days for those insects in the stage they're in.
I agree. It's like I put in that crop report the other day. I always advocate scouting soybeans till at least Labor Day. And this year we may be Columbus Day, We're still 2 weeks from a frost at Columbus Day. We can still be scouting beans. Yeah. But don't get to the point that we're at right now, whether you're in northern Illinois or you're in southern Illinois, and you got beans that are R5, or you got beans that are just starting to bloom with double crops or whatever. You've got this much investment in this crop. Don't just go off and leave it. Don't go off and ignore it. There's still a lot of things we can do to remediate issues. Now we're done applying nutritionals. We're done applying stress mitigators, in my opinion, at this point. But we may still need another fungicide pass just for a specific thing. We may not have to spend $35 on a fungicide. We may need, just like Byron said, we may need an insecticide out there yet. But just make sure you're don't give up right now and cost yourself 15, 20 bushel an acre. Don't contribute. Don't make a liar out of all these analysts that say we got a record crop. Because that's just going to hurt you. That's not going to hurt them. So I say just be diligent. That's all. Like I said, scout. Don't give up on the crop yet.
Yeah, I would say those guys nailed it. I mean, everything they said, I agree with. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, insects and beans is the biggest thing, and tar spot and corn, I think, is the top of mind, and just relaying to the grower that historically this is always when the market lows go in. So I mean, this is not nothing that we're not used to. So just take it as it comes and manage the crop. So
now this is going to be the cynic in me talking, but I talked to a grower the other day that I'm really close with, and he said, well, I'm going to have about 25% of my corn crop is going to be ready the last week of August, 1st of September, and then I'm not going to have anything else ready till the 20th of September. He said, I think I'm going to let that corn sit in the field. I'm not going to dry it. I'm just going to start when I can start and just keep shelling corn. And I'm like, okay, so what if a storm comes through and knocks everything down that you could have had picked 2 weeks ago if you'd have done it? So just think about all the contingencies. I mean, I understand wanting to save some money on dryer gas. I get that because I think we're going to spend a lot of money on dryer gas this year. But just don't wait too long, especially since that's probably going to be your best crop. That's going to be your best corn, that early stuff. I think it is down here. And I haven't been back to my patch I used to gauge early planted corn, but I think we're probably getting really close to black layer in some of the very earliest stuff. We were dented about 2 weeks ago. So I think we're probably getting, depending on what the variety is, I think we're probably getting pretty close to having some black layer here in the area. So.
I was going to say, the elephant in the room is the last thing that I just keep getting asked about still, and it's way too late, is the water hemp escapes. Mm-hmm. And I know we have more than we've ever had on our own farm, and so that is a common question I get just as I talk to media and such. So I think it's pretty noticeable from the road as well. Yeah.
I think it's just you almost got to budget a 3-pass program at beans, whether it's a pre and a post and 2 posts, or, a 4-pass with fungicide. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've done it a couple different ways, and it seems like we haven't found there's no silver bullet to it for sure, at least from our standpoint.
It's the old Southern Illinois adage, Mike. You want to kill it, or do you want to melt it? What do you want to do? Because those are your 2 options, right?
Yeah, that's not exactly the adage I've heard, but that's close.
Have any of you had observed any cover crop fields that have no weeds in them this year? Like they were in cover crop over winter, now in beans or corn, and looks pretty clean.
I wouldn't go as far as to say no weeds, but noticeably less weeds. Noticeably less weeds. You just buy so much time with cereal rye down here. I can tell a huge difference in the last 2 years. We've had a huge difference in one of my farmers retired and turned his farm over to a neighbor. And the fields look great. And we're sitting in my yard admiring his bean field around my house the other evening. And he said, "Boy, I don't know what them guys sprayed, but they controlled that water hemp." I said, "They didn't do crap. You not letting water hemp go to seed for the last 15 years is why it looks like that. Don't give them credit for it. You take credit for it." And that's the thing. You got to be diligent in your weed control. That's why I hate to see this stuff go to seed, because water hemp don't make 3 or 4 seeds, per plant. It makes a lot of seeds.
Couple million, I think.
Yeah, it's a bunch. And, and they'll lay there a while. They don't germinate right away. Sometimes they'll lay there 10 years. So.
The first thing I thought of when you said that is I'm just thinking of a cover crop field where I think it was aerial apply, and where there was a skip in the field, you could definitely tell there was water hemp. So same of Mike. Not that it's perfect, but it's definitely better. So
we haven't brought this up, but speaking of disease, red crown rot has been found in Illinois fields again this summer. Fields that had it 2 years ago, they're seeing it again. Any other observations you want to make on red crown rot? I know it can be a topic that really gets a lot of traction behind it sometimes. There's a lot of other diseases that are in talk right now. Anything you want to add to the red crown rot conversation?
No, we have not been able to go see it up and close. I think we're going to go this week. Darby and I are going to look. I don't think it's to the point where you can probably see it from the road yet still. But that it is showing up. One of the conversations I had yesterday is, for those further north, we keep finding it north of Bloomington, my north and Seth's north are different. But I want to make sure that those in like Seth's area or north, it's been said, well, it can't get past, or we aren't going to find it north of Bloomington, but we're starting to. So just make sure you start looking at the base just in case. That's the only thing. A word of advice: not everything's red crown rot. And I
Yeah.
do believe that you probably have SDS and brown stem rot up there, but
Yeah.
just in case, I would keep an eye out in your
No,
area.
the first thing I thought of when Kelsey said that is I mean, obviously I think I would figure it out if as it being red, but I don't know if I've ever actually seen it or been around it before to even recognize it until I see it, I guess so. But we'll be on the watch out for it. So
I will put in a plug for Crop Protection Network. They are a great resource. If you heard a disease today, you're like, what the heck is that? Or what does it look like? They're a great resource to get online and flip through their website. They have a podcast. They've had resources. I highly recommend cropprotectionnetwork.org. Will help you decipher some of these things if you're not familiar with them. Anything else, Stephanie, Mike, Byron, or Seth, that we didn't mention today?
Covered a lot.
No,
It is-
I think we've pretty well covered it.
yeah, I think we hit all the elephants in the room, or I think everyone's mind are kind of in the same spot. So yeah, I got nothing more to add.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining the Field Advisor podcast today. Until next time, we'll see what other crop reports you have come in. Just a quick plug for those crop reports. You can go to fieldadvisor.org. And in between podcasts, you can read Stephanie, Mike, Byron, and Seth's reports from their region. Until next time, thank you. Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor podcast on your favorite podcast platform.